Welcome to Falls Count Anywhere, where the wrestling ring meets the heart. Hosted by the gentleman Jody Powell, join us as we dive into the latest pro wrestling news and rumors, from the electrifying world of WWE to the inspiring stories of wrestling for Christ. This is your all-access pass to the action, the faith, and the hope. This is Falls Count Anywhere.
Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Falls Count Anywhere. I'm your host, the gentleman Jody Powell, and with me, as always, is my good buddy, my friend, my partner in crime, the mad scientist Mike Buchanan, deep in the Buchanan Laboratories. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I am fine, Jody. Happy New Year to you and your family there in South Carolina.
Oh, brother, thank you, man. Happy New Year to you guys, and I hope your new year and your 2025 is going to be full of blessings from God, and just an incredible year for the Buchanans and for what you got going on there. And speaking of what you've got going on there,
yes, sir.
What you got going on in the laboratory, man? I'm dying to know.
Well, I'm thinking about how should I put this? I'm borrowing from Amazon and some of the banks.
They'll never notice.
They'll never notice. The idea of being able to take photos of items you want to return to the store, so you don't have to wait in those ridiculous lines.
Okay. So a little bit of Christmas line relief, or
yes,
post-Christmas line relief, I should say.
Or birthdays, or whenever. You just take a photo of what you didn't want because it was the wrong size or it was ugly as sin, and for a small processing fee, they will refund your money early.
Refund the money early on the condition of you sending it back, and then charge you a little bit of a fee. Man, that sounds very entrepreneurial of you. I wouldn't mind getting in on that business. I think you might have something here, Mike.
Well, there's a certain someone that's going back to a house he inhabited about 4 years ago, and I think the entrepreneurial capitalist experience will be take a sharp upturn here in about 3 weeks. 2 weeks.
So you're saying that sometime after mid-January, the conditions are going to be favorable for businesses to grow in this country.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
I will neither do that either. Something like that. But I tell you what, I will confirm, Mike. We've got a very special show tonight, because joining us right after this break from Pro Wrestling Mid-South, he is the golden boy. Greg Anthony is here tonight to talk about his career, to talk about his adventures in professional wrestling, and that, fans, is coming up right after these messages. Oh, hello, wrestling fans. The gentleman Jody Powell here, and I can't tell you how much I love this devotional written by my partner on Falls Count Anywhere, the mad scientist, Mike Buchanan. He wrote this book called Feeling Down, Look Up. You want to get your copy today. It's on Amazon. So you're going to want to search for Feeling Down, Look Up by Mike Buchanan. And it's got verses, it's got stories, it's even got a place to make notes. It's fantastic. You'll thank me later. Well, hello, wrestling fans. Welcome back to Falls Count Anywhere. And as I mentioned before we went to break, I am super excited this week to be joined by my good buddy, Greg Anthony, the Golden Boy, out in Memphis, Tennessee. Greg, how are you, my man?
I am blessed as always. Glad to come on. Glad to meet Mike. This is the first time I've met Mike, so nice to meet Mike. And Jody, nice to see you again. I'm ready to get rocking and rolling.
I hear you, brother. I hear you, man. Tell us a little bit about your career. I mean, you've been doing this for a while. How did you get started in professional wrestling? Who was training you? Where did you kind of cut your teeth, so to speak, in the business?
Man, so we were actually, like a lot of people, I've been doing this almost 25 years now, so it'll be 25 years in April. And like a lot of guys from my era, like the Hardys and a lot of others, I started out backyard wrestling. We weren't doing, light bulbs and stuff like that, or barbed wire and stuff like that. I was doing a drop toe hold in backyard wrestling, but we started out backyard wrestling. And my buddy at the time, Memphis Championship Wrestling was coming to our hometown, and they were a developmental territory.
Okay.
And they were coming to our hometown, and they were only drawing about 30 people a month when they came. So my buddy, his dad was actually a cop in our hometown. He went up to the promoter, Terry Golden, and said, "Hey, listen, my son and his friends are trying to break into the business. Can you help them?" So he let us kind of get in the ring and see what we could do. And he said, "Okay, next time we come to town next month, we're going to put you kids in an intermission match."
Oh, nice. Right? Nice.
So we went around for a month telling everybody, "Hey, we're professional wrestlers now. We're going to be wrestling." Right?
Yeah.
And we show up to the event that night, and there was 200 people there.
Nice.
Wow.
And intermission match went from intermission match was actually semi-main event.
Cards subject to change.
Cards subject to change. Yeah, we were intermission. It was an intermission, all right, but we were semi-main on that card. And we're talking about when you had Daniel Bryan was still the American Dragon or the Hood.
Yeah.
You know, R-Truth was there when he was K-Crush. William Regal was there when he jumped from WCW to WWE, and they sent him to Memphis. Reckless Youth, just a bunch of guys were there, but we weren't allowed to be in the locker room with them. They put us in a separate locker room to protect the business.
Yep.
So we did that, and it went pretty well. And like we did that for a couple more times, and then Memphis Championship Wrestling eventually lost his developmental deal. And then we caught on with a local promotion here, and that's when we really started doing our training and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
a wild ride.
What a great story. What an amazing, I mean, I can't even imagine the nerves walking into an event where you're expected to be like the dark match. And all of a sudden here's William Regal. And, you know, all these guys that you watch on TV is like, I don't want to wrestle in front of these guys. I've never done it before.
I was scared. I was scared.
Man.
I will just say that. And, but after that happened, man, I was hooked. You know what I mean? Like that was it. Like, we had to keep doing it after that.
It gets in your blood, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's addicting. You can't get rid of that urge to perform, whether it's, you know, wrestling. I have it just announcing. I can't stand not to be in the ring, you know. So it's I know that feeling.
Did they provide any direction for your match, Grant? As far as how long or no?
I think they did tell us a time. Now that you mentioned it, they said maybe like 8 to 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
But like there was no like, we didn't know anything. We didn't know any kind of psychology of professional wrestling. We didn't know heat, shine, comeback, finish. We didn't know any of that kind of stuff. We just went out there and did what we thought professional wrestling was. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we worked in the ring earlier that day and the month before. You know what I mean? They kind of showed us a little stuff to kind of clean us up a little bit. Yep. But like other than that, they were just like, go do whatever. We don't care. You sold 200 tickets.
Just calling it on the fly. I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah. And tell me a little bit about that first time hitting the mat, hitting the ring. Now in backyard wrestling, when you say you got started in backyard wrestling, was this like on like legitimate steel frame boards, mats, or is this on like mattresses? What are we talking about?
Trampoline.
Trampoline. Okay.
Trampoline,
okay.
And then like some of the guys, not me, I want to add, not me, but some of the guys would do a tope off the trampoline to the outside of the ground.
Right.
I would not do that. Like I said, I was the Dean Malenko of trampoline wrestling. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing drop toe holds and like rolling through stuff and trying to do different stuff, and they're all trying to do, you know, not crazy stuff. No one got hurt and stuff like that, but it was just, yeah, we were doing like trampoline stuff.
That's incredible. A lot different when you hit that plywood in the middle of the ring.
Oh yeah. The first time I bumped, I was like, okay, what is this? Because that doesn't feel like I thought it would feel at all.
That's a real wood under there on a real steel frame, and there's nothing you can do to learn how to make it not hurt.
Right. I tell my, obviously since then I've had extensive training in the Dr. Toms and the Bill Dundees and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Dave Taylor, even that kind of stuff. But like I tell my students now, it's like this hurts no matter how you do it, but it hurts a lot less when you do it correctly.
Yeah, very true. Well, very true. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say the training must have paid off, because in the promotional material Jody provided me, I saw you were a Rookie of the Year in, what was it, 2001? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I just always, I just had a knack for the business. I really believe now I know that it was God given ability. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
everything that I'm good at in my life somehow points to professional wrestling.
Mm.
And I don't know, I don't know how that all works, but God, like I said, God used professional wrestling to save my life physically and spiritually. You know what I mean? And like that's what happened. I just always had a knack for all this kind of stuff. I could do things, and I knew how certain things were supposed to happen. You know, pretty young.
Yeah. You mentioned Dr. Tom, you mentioned Dave Taylor. Tell us a little bit about working and training with those guys and what it was like just to be trained by some of the best.
Yeah, I mean, like originally there was a guy here named Rude. He was part of a tag team called Naughty by Nature. He
Hmm.
did a lot of my training. Then there was another guy named Motley Cruz, who I know you guys have seen the famous Jumpin' Jeff Farmer clip, right?
Yes. Yep.
The
Yep.
worst promo of all time. Well, remember, he's talking to Motley Cruz.
Right.
Well,
Right.
that's actually one of the guys that helped train me too,
Yep. I know
right?
exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
But Motley Cruz was trained by Dick Steinborn, if you know that name.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
do.
And you do, awesome. So like, from that, and then I did some stuff with Dr. Tom. Dr. Tom holds seminars and camps and things like that. And with Dr. Tom, it was just really eye opening the way he really broke down every little thing, like just something as simple as a headlock takeover. You know
Mm.
what I mean? A lot of people, just do headlock takeovers. They don't, but there's actually a very intricate way to do a headlock takeover,
Yeah.
and like the way he taught it and the way that he explained it is how I explain it to my students to this day. You know what I mean? All these people that I got to train with and got to be around, I took a little bit from this guy and I took a little bit from that guy. You know what I mean? I made this melting pot of my curriculum. I've actually created a training curriculum that we follow, and it's just a little bit from everybody that makes sense for me and my thought process.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's got to make sense to you in order for you to be able to bestow that knowledge on someone else.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Greg, you mentioned how you discovered that it was God-given ability, God-given talent, how wrestling saved your life. And, we love to talk about wrestling on this show, but we also love to give encouragement to those who may be struggling. Tell me a little bit about how it was that you came to know the Lord and how God used wrestling to save your life, both physically and spiritually.
So I'll preface this by saying that there was a point in my life where I didn't grow up in church. When I got in high school, I had a group of friends. They grew up in church,
Hmm.
so they invited me to church. So I went to church for a little bit, and like everyone that goes to church for a little bit, I had some church hurt. Right? We've heard that term
Hmm.
before, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a disagreement with a youth pastor, and I quit going to church, and I quit going to church for 20 years. And
Hmm.
I got away from the Lord, and I got away from all that. And there was a point in my life when, I didn't know what I believed. I didn't know if I believed in God. I didn't know I was, I didn't know. I thought I was too smart to believe in God.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then several years ago, I'm wrestling and I started having chest pains,
Mm.
Uh-oh.
like intense chest pains.
Wow.
And at the time, I'm 35 years old. And when you're 35 years old, you don't automatically assume that you have a heart condition. You just think, oh, it's something I ate, or it's high blood pressure, or it's
Yeah.
this, or it's that. And I didn't know what it was. So we started running some tests, and they ended up finding out that I was actually born with no right arteries.
Wow.
And because I was born with no right arteries, not only was I born with no right arteries, but my arteries are actually smaller than normal as well.
Hmm.
And we found out that I had two 70% blockages and a 90% blockage in my Widowmaker.
Wow.
And I was wrestling 30 minutes a night, a breath away from a heart attack.
Goodness.
And
Go
ahead.
Real quick, I don't know if you're aware of this, and our listeners may or may not be, but the $1 Million Man's father died in the ring of a heart attack.
Yes.
And you were doing it, you said nightly for 30 minutes a night.
Yeah, I have a tendency to go long in my matches. So I was having these chest pains and I was being stubborn and I was thinking I could still do it. So I would, the chest pains would start happening and they would radiate from one side to the other and then the pain started to radiate up into my jaw.
Oh,
You know what I mean? And I would
yeah.
just kind of grab a hold and kind of wait for it to
Oh,
subside and then I
my
would start
goodness.
wrestling again. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And
Yeah.
like I said, I was doing that. I was a breath away from a heart attack. And at the time, this is 2017. My kids are, they hadn't had their birthdays yet, so they were 9 and 7.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I had two small children. I'm only 36 years old. I have a wife, I have a family, I have all this kind of stuff. And God is the closest to the brokenhearted, right?
Hmm.
Well, I was about at the bottom. I didn't know what to do, so I asked for prayers. I asked for help of some kind and just an outpouring of support. People praying for me and this and that. And I just remember I went in for the heart surgery and I was actually supposed to have open heart surgery. But the doctors realized how much professional wrestling meant to me. And they realized that if they cracked me open and gave me open heart surgery, then I wouldn't be able to wrestle for at least a year to year and a half.
Yeah.
Right. So they decided, hey, we're gonna go in and we're gonna angioplasty him out, and we're gonna stent the areas that we can, so this guy can still, function, that kind of thing. So they
Right.
went into that, and lo and behold, it was a miracle I made it. And after that, I just felt the presence of God. I felt the power of prayer, and after hearing people now talk about what they feel when they feel the presence of God, I really feel like it was the presence of God that day.
That's amazing.
And it changed my life like that. And like I tell everybody, especially new people coming to Christ, I can't do everything that I'm doing now 7 years later that first day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had to do it just a little bit. I had to let Jesus in just a little bit. And then once I let him in this area of my life, then I wanted him in this area of my life. And
Sure.
then I wanted him in that area of my life. And then I want him, I want to pray before my meals and I want to, do these different things. And all of a sudden, you know, it's a progress,
Yeah.
and I love progresses. So here we are.
Yeah. That's amazing. What a great testimony. What a great story. It's amazing how God draws us close to him through circumstances. And sometimes they're incredibly powerful, um, very visible circumstances like you went through. And other times they're just very subtle things that God just brings us back or brings us to him. And it's amazing. What a blessing. Greg, let me ask you this right now. You are doing a lot of really cool stuff out in Memphis. And tell us a little bit about what's going on with your promotion and your organization out there in the Memphis area, in the Mid-South area.
Yeah, Mid South. We're Pro Wrestling Mid South. We're located about 70 miles north of Memphis, but we do every Friday night in Ripley, Tennessee. We do every Saturday night in Dyersburg, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
We do spot shows for schools. We do birthday parties. We do just about anything. We do about 125 to 150 events a year, and we're all family friendly, Christian based. And we just, we're constantly looking for new opportunities to bring people to Christ as much as we can. You know what I mean?
Right.
I started, like we just talked about, starting a little bit by little bit, right? So I started doing where we had some worship music is playing during intermission. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
stuff like that. Now our bumper at the beginning of the show actually says that we're a Christian company and we give all glory to God. We started with stuff like that, and I'm just immensely proud of all my guys. I've seen a lot of change in a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people come to Christ just through this wrestling in our own ministry.
Yeah, that's amazing. And currently he is the AIWF World Heavyweight Champion, which you may say, well, that doesn't sound like Pro Wrestling Mid-South. What is that? Tell us a little bit about AIWF. This is a lot bigger than just being the champion of one promotion, man.
Right, yeah. AIWF is the Allied Independent Wrestling Federation. It's been around since 1992. And there's 150 promotions across 49 countries recognize the AIWF as their, kind of like their NWA,
Yeah.
So, and I am the AIWF World Heavyweight Champion. I won the title at first in June 23. I lost it earlier this year, but I won it back. So I've been champion pretty much for almost a year and a half now.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Are these events that are like around the world? Have you wrestling in other countries and that sort of thing?
I haven't got a chance to go out of the country, but I've got to go up to Chicago. I've got to go to the Carolinas, South Louisiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Middle Tennessee, places like that. I've been all over with it. So, it's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like it was, I always wanted to be a world champion, and here we are,
That's very cool. I mean, it's one thing to be the world champion of your promotion. It's quite another to be the world champion of a conglomerate of promotions, just like back in the day, just the old NWA heavyweight champion, territory to territory, town to town, state to state, man. That's really cool. Greg, listen, go ahead.
The thing with it too is, when I won the title, we had 90 promotions in 30 countries.
Wow.
And then since I've been champion, we've grown to 150 and 49. And I like to think that I helped with the visibility of the title, and, a lot of people said like, hey, what does this say? If Greg Anthony's a part of it, then we know it's old school. We know it's the right way to go. You know what I mean? We want to be a part of it too. And that meant a lot to me just as a professional.
Sure. Yeah. It's very much an honor and well-deserved too.
Greg, whoops. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
You were talking about traveling to the different cities around. Is that something that you're doing as a champ, or do you combine it with other opportunities for the rest of the Mid-South wrestling?
So yeah, like they when they book me for these other things, it's me personally. But like with me being champion, like a lot of my guys have gotten opportunities through that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a lot of the Pro Wrestling Mid-South guys that I trained from scratch. You know what I mean? Pretty much everyone that's a part of Pro Wrestling Mid-South now is either someone that I trained originally or someone that I've mentored since very early on in their career. So it's a very in-house thing. So anytime those guys have an opportunity, I can get them on shows in Chicago, or I can get them on the shows in Louisiana, or, some of the bigger shows in Missouri. I'm more than happy to help do that.
The reason that I asked is, you're talking about old school. I remember hearing the road stories from people like the Flairs and the Rhodeses. How do you maintain that Christian standard whenever there are all those temptations out there when you're by yourself?
Mike, that is a great question. I'm actually very glad that you asked that question. One is I was never a big drinker or I never did any drugs. You know what I mean? Like I was never a womanizer, any of that kind of stuff, even before I became a Christian. So my reputation kind of precedes me of that standard. But the great thing, guys, the really great thing is when I go to these other companies now, I've actually been asked to lead a prayer.
Wow.
Nice.
So like they know that when I get on my Facebook and I say all glory to God or we're this or we're that, they know that it's not just a wrestling gimmick or anything like that. They believe it. They know that I'm telling the truth, and it meant a lot to me. I went to Missouri and didn't expect anything. I'm just a wrestler on the card like everyone else on this show. You know what I mean? I'm not the promoter. I'm not the booker. I'm not the boss. And they go, hey, Greg, will you lead us in a prayer? And hallelujah.
Absolutely. I love that.
I hope that we're being a good role model for the younger guys and even some of the older guys that need direction. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that we're doing something for them, but it's not for us. Obviously, it's all glory to God.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wrestling fans, he is the golden boy. Greg Anthony out of Memphis, Tennessee, Pro Wrestling Mid-South. Greg, I want to thank you for joining us on Falls Count Anywhere. Wrestling fans, we'll be back right after these messages with Finding Tomorrow. Hello, wrestling fans. The Gentleman Jody Powell here. Are you searching for an engaging speaker for your next church event, civic meeting, industry conference, or a company-wide motivational session? Well, look no further. I'd be honored to bring energy, insight, and inspiration to your event. With experience as a 2022 Toastmasters World Championship of Public Speaking semifinalist, I know how to connect with audiences, both large and small. Whether it's an intimate gathering or a packed auditorium, I'll deliver a memorable and impactful message tailored to your needs. Visit today at www.jodypowellspeaks.com to explore my keynotes, talks, and trainings. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Book me today. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back, wrestling fans, and Happy New Year. That was a really incredible interview that we were able to do, Jody, with Brad Anthony there, and he shared a lot of encouraging stuff about how sometimes the Lord works in ways that we just don't understand. And then you brought up an idea for what you want to do next Monday on Falls Count Anywhere, rather than trying to cram it into a shortened 3-minute Finding Tomorrow here tonight.
Yeah, Mike, I love the stories that Greg was telling, particularly about how God used wrestling to bring him back to him, to call him back. And you're right. I mean, we had such a great interview that I don't want to trivialize the real meat of it in just this short amount of time we have left in this show. So next week, fans, next week on Falls Count Anywhere, it's going to be a complete 30-minute show of Finding Tomorrow, where we're going to analyze what Greg said. We're going to talk about his testimony. We're going to talk about how God uses certain situations that to us can seem like we want to ask the questions, why is this happening to me? Why have I received that diagnosis? Why is it that I have this disability? Why is it that I have this trouble? Why is it that I can't be rich? Why is it that I can't be famous? Why is it that I'm not the pro athlete or the pro wrestler? Whatever it is, we have this tendency, Mike, to want things that we don't have instead of really appreciating and understanding the things that we do. And God uses all of these circumstances, all of these things, whether it's medical, whether it's financial, whether it's personal, whatever the trials that we've been given, to really lean into Him. I told someone, and I can't remember who it was, that God absolutely gives you more than you can handle. That's a misnomer to say, oh, God will never give you anything you can't handle. Excuse me. Yes, He most certainly will. And the reason He does that is that so we lean into Him. We depend on Him. We come to Him and we lay our burdens down.
It's like somebody once said, don't watch out, look up.
Who was that smart man that said that? I know who it was. It was a mad scientist, Mike Buchanan, who said that. And wrestling fans, we're going to talk a lot more about that next week on Finding Tomorrow. So tune in next Monday night, 7 p.m. But don't go anywhere, fans, because right now, coming up on Abundant TV, it's the Saint, the Masked Saint, Chris Whaley, Jeff Dixon. They're on The Clash. Stay tuned. Don't forget Saturday Night Praise and Power Hour, 6 p.m. Saturday night, right here on Abundant TV.